we're going to be moving forward soon.
Amazing. So quick program update. Lotta is building a program specifically geared towards veterans in Miami.
Yes.
And Rosalie, who joined our group, has a space, is a member who took over her space and needs members. And so the two of them are joining forces because it makes
Thank you. Okay.
Ta-da. Melanie, how's things going with you?
Things are going well. I'm in Prescott, Arizona. I have a space. I'm working on a lease right now. I still don't have a signed lease, but hopefully in the next couple of days.
Okay. Oh boy. Okay, so we might have some lease conversations to have there, huh? Okay. And John, I see you next. How's it going?
Good, Tony. Hello, everyone. I'm John Varig. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm just started construction on a 13,000 square foot co-working space and look to open up next May. So we just had our pre-construction meeting with all of our subs on Friday, and hopefully they're getting started today.
Amazing. Awesome. Very good. And Elena, I see you're on the call. You want to just say a quick hello?
Can you hear me? Sorry, I'm like not put together yet, so I'm trying to get the video going.
All good.
Good morning. It's Monday. Elena, I'm out by Seattle with Vibe Coworks. And this what our question was. Sorry.
Oh, just what the latest one sentence status update is for you.
One status update. I see the trucks outside my window delivering our windows for the new space as we speak. Really cool conversations with the university we lined up with last week, and some cool plans in the books with a photographer who shoots for Getty Images that we're going to do some work with ahead of our opening.
Ooh, fancy. Okay.
A trade, mind you, a trade.
Yeah. Okay. And Mike, how's things going on your end?
Going good, Tony. Not too bad. Not too bad. We technically kind of took over our lease on December 1st, so just on Friday with it, which is awesome. But a couple hiccups. Our heat's not working, so the landlord's working on that. So that's
ready.
Thing. But other than that, we're rocking and rolling, and the fundable page that we got lined up got approved, and we're good to go with that. So yeah.
Awesome. And remind us where you are in the world.
Oh, sorry. Northampton, New Hampshire.
Okay, so a place where working heat is a priority this time of year.
It would be, yeah. If we were a little bit warmer, it wouldn't be a big deal. But yeah. You can still be in there. It's just you need a coat, So.
Welcome to the world of managing space. I'm sorry. Okay, great. So Angel is a dear friend of mine who I've known for a very long time now. 8 years, Angel?
Something like that.
Something like that. And as you've seen in the intro, she runs a co-working space in Fort Collins and has been an advocate for the co-working movement, a teacher of co-working space managers, and just an all-around great person. So Angel, I'm really, thank you for taking the time to hang with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it for, 2 weeks. Or...
2 weeks of anticipation is still a fair bit of anticipation. So guys, I think what I'd want to do is just ask Angel a little bit about kind of what she's been seeing recently and what's been on her mind. And then I'd love to see if you guys have any questions for her, or if we can just kind of go back around and touch on some of the topics that came up during your quick mini intros. And so I'm going to start with just asking Angel. Angel, what's on your mind lately? What are you seeing in the co-working world?
Well, I'm turning one of my private offices into more flex co-working spaces right now to alleviate some of the strain on my wait list. And so I am fully in the rabbit hole of Wayfair rugs. I just need to buy a rug today, and it's just everything I can do to pick a rug. So I'm real consumed with buying a rug today.
So you have a wait list, and I feel like a lot of people would like to have a wait list. How did you get to the point where you could be so awesome as to get to wait list level?
Yeah, so a little bit of background. Cohere is on the smaller side. We started with 1,000 square feet back in 2010. And then 2 years later, we moved into I don't know, maybe 1,500-ish square feet. And now we're at 2,500. So we've just been adding the various spaces that come available in our building as we get them. So we are 2,500 square feet. We only have 10 flex desk workstations upstairs in the co-working area. We have 7 offices and 65 people sharing all of that. So we are like on top of each other, just like in each other's way. The wait list is now 8 people long. Nobody's leaving. And I'm really stressed out about all the people that are on the wait list because I think it's terrible that they have to be on a wait list. How we got to a wait list, I'm not even sure I know how we got on a wait list. I think we do a really good job with community. I think our website as the first touch point with people who visit Cohere shows them right away that we're a little bit different than a generic or corporate looking co-working space. There are pictures of our faces all over it, and there's only a couple of empty rooms, which I allow for conference room rental web pages. Mm-hmm. And then from the moment somebody schedules a tour, they get connected with one of my community cultivators who gives them excruciatingly detailed instructions on where to park and how to find us and where to go once you're inside the building. And then they get a tour where we introduce them to everyone who's in the building. And then if they join, or in this case, go on the wait list, on their first day of membership, they get an orientation packet, they get a welcome email. We make sure they're invited to all of the events. All of our events are members only. So we don't have a lot of public people coming through here. We're 24/7 key code access, so our door is locked all of the time now, which has been amazing to keep like random people from coming in and asking to use the restroom. So I don't know. We were just real high touch, real involved in our members' lives. We let members host events and do programming that they're excited about. There's a knitting circle in our living room and a chili cook-off coming up. And I think our small size allows us to just be really high touch and really personal.
How did those events come about? Like the chili cook-off and the knitting circle, like how did it go from in the brain of the member to actually scheduled?
So usually like 2 members end up talking to each other and they'll say, oh, you knit? I like to knit. I wonder if Angel would let us knit every Tuesday in the living room. And so like, hey, can we have a knitting group every Tuesday? I'm like, sure. Like, it's not like you're asking me to murder people or something. You just want to get yarn and sit around in a circle every week. So that happened. And then just recently, a bunch of members found out they all like to go rock climbing. So they've been going to the rock climbing gym together without my involvement at all. They just set it up amongst themselves. And that's amazing too.
Gotcha. So it's been totally informal. It's just something that happens to be happening. And then how do you communicate to new members or prospective members what's happening? Like one of the things that I notice is kind of tricky about member source things is that you want to tell people about it, but you can't necessarily sell it because it's not something you're offering, and the members themselves might stop doing it at any time. So how do you manage communicating about that kind of thing?
Like via what platform? Or
well, I guess just like if somebody new joins and you want to tell them about the things that are happening, how do you tell them about the things that the members are doing?
I suppose that would just be informal, like as they get to know us. I mean, the thing about Cohere is the physical density is so high that if anybody is talking about anything, everybody can hear it. So it's not like there's a lot of secretive conversations happening. If somebody says, hey, we're all going to Spanish club tonight, then somebody else will be like, I'm learning Spanish. Can I come?
So there's definitely a eavesdropping encouraged kind of.
Oh yeah, there are no secrets. There's no soundproofing over here.
Fair enough. And so most everyone in this particular group today is in some form of kind of a pre-launch phase. We've got Mike, who just signed, kind of, got in the door. Elena is in a temporary space, but is still kind of gearing up for her permanent space. And everyone else here is in some degree of not yet occupying the space, but getting ready to occupy one. And so, I drill into everyone's heads every week, obviously building the community before you open the space, just getting people together and forming those kinds of gatherings. But I'm sure that the way that I'm communicating that is, I'm sure there's other ways of framing that and other ways of looking at it. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, Angel, you're in a room with, 8 people who are working on opening co-working spaces in the next, 3 to 12 months. What would you recommend? What would you tell people to do?
It's probably just going to be kind of reiterating everything that Tony has told you. You should listen to Tony. You should do what Tony says.
Thank you. The check is in the mail.
Yeah, I'm going to need my commission check. So to give you a little bit more background, a couple of you know this, but not everybody does. I just closed one of my businesses last week. So I had a shared rehearsal space for bands. And it was very space centric because it had to be. It was the whole point, was hourly shared rehearsal space for bands. And I think looking back at that closing, once again reminded me that what we do isn't about the space. It is not. It is not about the 4 walls. It is not about even what rug I'm going to pick. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, yes, I want the room to not be echoey, but it doesn't matter if it's turquoise or gray or high pile or low or how much it costs or where I get it from. Because what's going to matter is people are going to sit in that room together and get work done. And they're going to get to know each other, and they're going to go to the rock climbing gym together, and they're going to set up a play date for their kids. And in 100 years, when we're all dust or whatever, nobody's going to remember the space or the stupid rug. They're going to remember the relationships that they formed and the friends that they made and the best friends that they have now. And so every time you do something, you should be thinking, how does this facilitate people becoming friends? Or how does this facilitate memories being made or photos I can take to have after the business closes? And I can look back at all the amazing times that we had. And the general sentiment for my one business closing was, yeah, we're bummed that the space is gone, but I met my bandmates, or I met my girlfriend, or I met, somebody who would become my best friend. That's what matters. It doesn't matter that it happened in this box. It matters that it happened at all.
Nicely put. I can tell you've been processing the closing of that space recently.
Yeah, a lot.
And you've opened and closed multiple spaces now, and I imagine that I know that you've been processing and sharing your experience a lot with regards to that. And so I guess what I'm thinking about is, if we put ourselves back in the shoes of before we had a place open for business, and we wanted to get more people kind of involved in what we're doing, but also recognizing that, hey, I've got a lot to do. I've got to raise money. I've got to do a build out. I've got to negotiate a lease, all these things. And so all this talk of building community is really great, but there's other stuff I have to do. And maybe I'm not even exactly sure how to go about this in the best way. What do you think would be the most efficient way that you would do it differently? If you were to do the Cohere bandwidth again, but it were now instead of a couple of years ago, what would you do differently to kind of help to build that support structure around you and have those happy memories being formed while also dealing with the craziness of the build out and the planning and all of that?
So here's the cautionary tale of Cohere bandwidth. I did all that for Cohere bandwidth. I did every piece of community building and building up interest and buzz before we opened. And it still failed just purely for sales. So I know that that's probably not heartening to you as new people, but it just iterate. I guess I would just say, like, what you do today, the desks you buy today may not work in 2 years, so you just get different ones. But for like being efficient with your time and building community, I think it's something that's always worked well for me is to document with photos or video every single milestone. So I hired staff and he had to go to the bank with me so I could get him a bank card. Selfie at the bank goes on Instagram. We got the keys to the space, video of me pirouetting through this empty space goes up on social media. We need to pick paint color, put the paint colors on the wall, have a meeting, bring donuts and coffee, say everybody vote on your paint color. Pick 3 desks, make a blog post. Which desk do we want? Have people vote. So they feel like they have power in the space before you're actually in the space. So that when you do actually open, they feel like they're already part of your origin story, that they're already with you and they're not an outsider coming into this thing that you've built in a vacuum by yourself.
And it kind of makes it more fun that way too, right? Because then it's not just you stressing out doing all this and going home kind of feeling like you're alone, right? You get to have the support of these people that you're sharing this journey with, and hopefully some help, right?
Yeah, every day I have to remind myself that the members or the people in your community or those handful of people that are meeting with you every week, they have the answer. They absolutely know the answer to your problem. You just have to find a way to ask them and get the information out of them. Because I was hemming and hawing about changing this private office into a flexi space, and I remembered that some of the writers wanted a writer's den. So I just emailed them all and I said, hey, is this still a thing? Is that still interesting? What do you need to make it useful for you? And they're like, oh, we need a bin to store our books, and I need it to be quiet without any like audio notifications and people talking. And so it's like, great, I can do that. Like, you tell me what you need and then I go buy the rug. Mm-hmm. And going back to taking photos and videos of everything, since we did such a good job of that with bandwidth, I mean, we took photos in every space we looked at. We took photos of the lease paper as we were signing it. We took photos of the paint color and the lamps we were buying and the gear as we bought it. And we did a big field trip to go get a locally made amp. And so I think last Christmas, I made one of those Instagram photo books for my staff. And it was so amazing because it was literally every step along the way. And it was the most meaningful gift and something I'll treasure forever, because it was just every emotion, every milestone, however minor it was, every event we had. And so if you can live your life knowing that you want to have an Instagram photo book at the end of the year, you can just remember, like, take a picture every day. And it doesn't have to be this, amazing, like Pinterest worthy thing. It could be like, I hung a whiteboard.
And then of course there are things that you're not doing every single thing yourself. So at some point you need help, and odds are that there's somebody in your community who can help. One of the things that we've been developing in our conversations here, and I don't have a resource for it yet, is this notion of kind of developing your support village. So, when we did Newark City, we had IT guys put together our whole network. We had, a legal guy do pro bono work for for that stuff. And we sent business to all of those people over the course of our years of being, I'm still sending business to some of those guys. And so, getting out there also gives you an opportunity to create a feedback loop for, hey, I need help with this thing. Who's good at this thing? Mm-hmm. And everything that you're really not good at, or that, someone else could be way better at, is an opportunity to offload. So much of what I talk to people about is just trying to minimize the amount of stuff on your plate, find the things that can get taken off of your plate that someone else can do, so that you can focus just on getting the thing done. Especially once you hit the red zone, once you get kind of the last 6 weeks before you launch, just not taking on anything that isn't necessary.
Yeah, when we first started, I think I bartered out so much of what we needed. I traded a desk for a website. I traded a desk for a press release. My friend Steve came over and set up our Wi-Fi router because we just needed one, and I just couldn't even.
Gotta love Steve.
Gotta love Steve. A bunch of people that were in the community before we opened the space came and helped me clean up, just sweep and polish, and they just showed up. I didn't ask them. They're like, "Hey, you have an event tonight, and I bet you're kind of stressed out." And I think that's when it clicked for me, and I thought, "Oh my God, these people are willing to come out and like sweep a floor, and they're not getting paid."
And so for desk for website, like how much desk time did you give your website maker, for example?
So I think she charged me $2,500 for that, and so our reserve desk at the time was $250. So she got like 10 months.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that.
But because I bartered so much, I had bodies in the space when we opened, and so it wasn't this vacant sort of terrifying empty building. It was like, oh, there's already like 4 members here working, and the people who come in for a tour don't need to know that they bartered, but it creates some sort of vital essence in your space. So there's actually people there doing the thing you want the new members to do with them, which is so much easier to sell when there's bodies.
Yeah, because the first like 3-6 months, you're probably not going to be full, and that space does carry value, maybe to people who don't have the money to pay for it, but do have something else to offer in exchange for that. And so you can offer that thing that's valuable to them, but isn't valuable to you in the sense that you're going to have some extra spots. So you could almost plan to say, hey, we're going to have at least 5 seats that we're going to monetize by way of barter. Right. And then those people tend to have a better relationship with the space too, right? Because they're kind of invested in it, and they're getting a special deal.
Well, and you learn a lot when you're a business owner that hires a freelancer, but that freelancer is also your customer. So I learned so much about how to be a good client to a freelancer. I learned all of the things I needed to know about how not to be a terrible client and ask for 50 different rounds of revisions. And then I also got kind of a deeper look into what it's like to do freelance work, which directed some of the programming that we ended up doing, because it was like, oh, I haven't really signed any contracts with any of these freelancers, but I think that's important. Maybe we should have a class for how to have a contract as a freelancer. And so just working in kind of that cyclical relationship with your members is fascinating, because it requires a lot of diplomacy, because you're a customer, but they're your customer. And so it's like, how do you make sure that everything's positive and all the expectations are met, knowing that you're serving each other, which I think is such a great platform for a co-working space anyway, because, members can become customers of each other as well. And you want to make sure that relationship is stable. And so I think, you're just kind of building these foundations of really respectful, mutually beneficial relationships. And so I don't even think I figured this out until I said it out loud just now, but I think that was huge for when Cohere started, because it's a really unique way to start a business.
Yeah, well, and interesting that you bring up the fact that members do business with each other, because, that's a good thing, but it can also lead to problems. Members are humans, and humans have trouble communicating with each other, and that leads to kind of situations. I know a very good friend of ours at the Co-working Dublin conference was saying that they had a conflict resolution issue, just 2 members who worked together, and they had a big disagreement about whatever it was about the way that they worked together in a project. And you know, there were two members who were really valuable to the community, but now they basically really don't like each other anymore. And, you know, what do you do about that? And, you know, so I tried to talk her through it, and it's a tricky situation. There are ways to handle it. But if you can anticipate those kinds of things and design for those kinds of things, then, you know, maybe you can help everybody be a little bit happier, get along better, which is good.
Yeah, I kind of did the meta version of that with the book I just wrote. So there's 2 graphic designers at Cohere, and I actually wanted to experiment with them doing the project together. So I hired 2 freelance graphic designers, both members of Cohere, to design my book. And at the very beginning, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work at all. And it ended up working amazing. And so now they're, you know, they learn stuff and they built off one another's strengths. And so it was almost like they formed a mini agency, because one was better at this part and the other one was better at this part. And together they were like a superpower.
Right. That's awesome. And what is this book that you're talking about?
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned it. So this is my new book. It's called The Ultimate Co-working Launch Sequence.
Oh, you happen to have it right there.
I happen to. It's so weird. I just had it on me. It's available in print on Amazon. It's also available on Kindle Fire on Amazon. And then you can just get the interactive PDF version on my website at coherecommunity.com. But what's fun about it is it's not just a reading book. It's like an interactive workbook with activities and field trips and journal activities and introspection. And actually, I'm going to put Melanie on the spot. So Melanie's read the book, and she's been through my group about the book. Like, Melanie, did you get anything out of the book?
I got a lot out of the book.
We didn't mean for this to become a total sales pitch, by the way. So just say.
Just bear with us for this long.
No, the book was extremely helpful for me. It made me, you know, once I finally carved out the time to go through the book and went through a lot of the different exercises, forced me to answer those things that I'm like, oh, I know that. I already know that, like, mentally. But then when I started putting stuff down, I was like, wow, I really haven't thought this through very well. And it made me come up with those answers that I need to be able to communicate to my new members and stuff. And the book is also really diverse. I mean, it covers a lot of different things that as you're opening, that you're like, oh, I hadn't thought about that piece. And I'm so glad Angel just already spelled it out for me. I don't have to think too hard about it now. I can just go down here and check. So it was extremely, extremely helpful for me. And
Angel,
still is. I still keep referring back to it. So it's great.
Thanks.
Angel, do we have any kind of a coupon between you and me on that at all, or anything like that?
I can make one.
Yeah?
Well, so here's the deal. I really believe that the print one off Amazon is the best, and I can't do a coupon on Amazon because they're the worst. I can do a coupon for the one on my website. So I'll send that to you, and you can send it to your people.
Excellent. Very good. Yeah, so Angel and I, you know, being good friends and being folks who are helping people with co-working spaces, you know, part of why I'm inviting her here is because we want to just find ways to work together and support each other in our efforts to help people build spaces, since we're both doing that. So cool. What kinds of questions are coming up for you guys? You know, Angel and I have been doing most of the talking. Has anything kind of stirred up for any of you?
Hey, Tony, so I have something. I was just, as I'm playing around, once I get my heat done with it, which hopefully actually may be a blessing versus a curse in terms of some space needs. One of the things I was thinking about around the holidays to be able to do was, since our space is still developing, we don't have as many things, that we just have a couple desks, is almost do like a wrapping party, because a lot of our problem is like parents that are trying to wrap for either other parents or for their kids or things like that, and literally just supply the paper and scissors and tape and just make it a donation to one of our community groups to, like, people can come in and do that. So it just gives them some space and time. So just wanted to get people's thoughts on that.
I think that's a great idea because I'm just now, all of my daughter's Christmas presents are in my trunk. And it's like I'm holding these grenades and I'm like, I don't know where to put these. I don't know where to wrap them. Like she's everywhere. So as a parent, I think that's an amazing idea.
Well, I imagine we could all kind of bring supplies too. People could bring extra of whatever they have and kind of share it around. So yeah.
It's a gift wrapping potluck.
Yeah, kind of like that. That was the idea, kind of a thing. And I'd like, we'll supply the coffee, you supply the presents. And, the thought was too, just to give back to our local community in some way and be like, just whether it's a fishbowl and just say, hey, donation, and all the donations there will go to XYZ type of thing. We're going to do it like our local St. Vincent de Paul to help a family or something over the holidays. So.
Mike, are you, I also love that idea. Are you doing that instead of a holiday party, or is that in addition to? Because this is what I'm working on today.
Well, we don't really have quite a holiday party given the fact that literally just opened the doors with nothing in it on December 1st. So kind of as we've got a couple of people dropping in, but obviously my heat thing is kind of put a damper on that, in terms of use of the space. So, we could kind of make it a holiday party, but the idea was just getting exposure to maybe people that hadn't heard about our space yet. So I guess I'd say new people versus people who've already heard about the space.
Who's we in your world, Mike? Like how many people are you already kind of in touch with or already aware of the project?
We've got like six to eight people, in terms of the space, that are going to be coming in. Also, one of my things I was playing with is it seems like a lot of them are, in essence, I call them telecommuters, people who are just literally working from home, that their pain point is when the kids come home. And so I was almost toying with, to get more exposure, is just be open for free from Christmas to New Year's, when all those kids are going to be home, so that people can come and use the space to be able to get some stuff done and give us free feedback on, hey, what could we do better? What would you like if you were to use this? What would you? And so that's kind of the thought process. So I just toying with those things.
Cool. So at Newark City for years, we did a thing called the DIY holiday party, and it was basically a whole day of arts and crafts that culminated in a holiday celebration happy hour thing. But it was on a Friday. It was like, maybe the Friday before Christmas, like a week before Christmas. And so it was kind of when everything was winding down into holiday mode. And we had people sign up in advance to lead a craft activity. And so somebody would do gingerbread house, and somebody would do let's make ornaments, and somebody would do, whatever. And inevitably people would bring or make various food and drink items throughout the day. And so we had, festive food and beverages, and that was like the day that we really turned up the cheesy Christmas music. And so for the most part, some people worked and some people just didn't. And what was nice is that people could kind of partake of whichever arts and crafts they wanted to throughout the day. So you could take the whole day and just do stuff. Or you could, if you have meetings, you could kind of alternate between doing work stuff and doing festive stuff. But people love that stuff. There's so much good, like just ritual, tribal, human, celebratory stuff that you can do around the holidays. The way that, people do the arts and crafts, they do the gifts. There's lots of ways to, eat and drink around holiday theme type things, the way that you can dress. And so it's a really nice opportunity, I think, for people to form more intimate bonds with each other. So, Mike, I think your idea is awesome. I think if anything, you could go further with it and make it even more of a celebration and more of a holiday kind of an experience. And it might even just be a little bit of music and holiday themed beverage type things. But you might be able to take that and then just go a little bit further with it to make it a really special celebratory kind of a thing as well. And
cool, thanks.
Yeah, cool. Elena, what are your thoughts on your holiday party that you're planning?
If I can find you again. Mute.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't put 2 cents to it. That's my project for today, was kind of figuring out what to do. We're a little bit, I'm a little bit in event fatigue right now, both personally and on the vibe front. And we're kind of looking ahead to a couple of things that we're doing in January, including the first weekend of January. So I'm also don't want to fatigue the people in our circles, but feeling like we have to do something for the holidays. So trying to figure out what that is. And so these ideas are helpful.
And you're doing Global Entrepreneurship Week related activities as well? Do I remember that right or no?
We did. Yeah. So the second week in November. So we're just coming off of that. And then, like I said, we've got some kind of bigger stuff happening in January. And I'd actually, if I can, it's still event related, but not holiday related. There's a book. I don't know how many of you are in kind of more suburban communities, but one of the things we're looking at is, how can we be a catalyst to kind of the startup community here in our suburban area, and kind of building that ecosystem and whole kind of bigger conversations. And there's a book called Startup Communities by Brad Feld, which hits home for a whole lot of reasons. And so we've been having a lot of conversations about whether we do a series of event type stuff around that, whether we try to get a sponsor to get that book into a bunch of people's hands and have kind of like town hall conversations around it. So that's been taking up a lot of my brain space, is like how and if and whether to do that. And if that's just a dumb idea, if we should stick to simple things like holiday parties.
Well, I know for the holiday parties in my space, like I would have loved to have done more of the planning for that, but I also knew that I had people in the community who love doing stuff like that. And, we're more than happy to throw a lot of time into doing a lot of the prep and promotion and planning. So I'm wondering, do you have people in your community that you could be better activating and empowering and delegating to as far as some of that's concerned?
Possibly. I think part of my hesitation comes in that we've had almost all of our members have knocked down their membership for December because a lot of them are traveling. So that also, I'm not sure how many people are going to be around in the same way that people are still around, but people that are normally on a full-time have dropped down to a 5 or 12 day a month sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just for the month of December, and then they're coming back in January. But I feel like everyone's super busy.
I'm just picturing. Yeah, go ahead, Angel.
Oh, I just think there's a lot of pressure and a lot of like bids for your attention in December. So we're actually not doing a holiday party in December. We've bumped ours to next year, and we're going to call it a post-holiday party. Just because all the venues are booked, everything's expensive, everything's hectic, everybody's traveling, and so we just sort of opt out. And when we do have it, I'll just probably have an open house at my home and make a taco bar or something. So you can opt out. You don't have to have a holiday party right now.
Awesome. So many ways to do it. I know there's a group in, my sister's company, they do a holiday party in mid-January, and it's great because it's a time of year when it's kind of a bummer, like nobody's really doing anything. So it's nice to kind of, zig where everyone else zags, which is good too. I just like Christmas time. Awesome. Any other questions in this thread, or should we hot seat to another person, another topic? All right. In that case, I'm curious, Melanie, how things are going with your lease. We're doing mini hot seats, by the way. That's what's happening right now.
Awesome.
So I'm just throwing people on if I think they've got a question that needs answering. And feel free, there is a raise hand feature in this, but you can also just chat if you're not calling in from the phone. So if you want to take a turn on the hot seat, then just do one of those things. But Melanie, what is going on with your lease? What needs to be figured out?
Well, I now have a broker working with me to go back and forth with the red line lease. And what I got back, I wanted to include a proposed 6-year or an additional 3 years after this first 3 years. Like, what would that look like? And what they came back with, I wasn't real happy with it. So I just need to get together with the broker. I'm scheduled to meet with him tomorrow morning with my husband to go through it and have him explain their thoughts on, what exactly does this mean? Because the way I read it, I'm like, I don't like that. That doesn't make me happy at all. But maybe I'm just not understanding what this means. So So tomorrow morning, I'm hoping a lot of that gets cleared up and that I'm a lot happier. I think it's just what I found out this morning is that I have the option to get out of the lease at the end of each year for the full 6-year thing, for the full 6 years that we're proposing for this space. And that's like, okay, but then they also want the same thing. Mm. They want the option to get out of it at the end of each year too.
Did they explain why they would be offering that?
They haven't explained why. Hopefully I can find that out tomorrow. I know that Prescott Valley and right where the co-working space is located, it's just going crazy booming right now. It's been, a slow buildup to this over the, last several years, but now with this new apartment complex that's going in there, and they've really done a good job to turn this into a walking community, which they didn't have there before. And I'm guessing they're predicting like this is going to be an awesome thing. Maybe they want to turn it and use it as a co-working space themselves. I don't know. I want to know what their thoughts are on this.
Yeah, because I'm concerned if they want to be able to get out of it in a year, every year, then then you could be out of business in a year, right? I mean, or at least you could be in a tough spot. So,
yeah.
That would limit the amount of work you should be willing to put into that space, because, any value you put into that space essentially becomes theirs, or could even work against you. So I would think that they would have to do all of the, tenant improvements at that point, if they were to do that. But I don't know. It seems like I would treat that as a 1 year, a 1 year deal. Either see if you could negotiate for a longer deal, or I don't know, consider that as a compared to whatever other options you might have,
right?
In terms of space.
Look at it more as a temporary situation versus, and there's not a lot of build out that needs to happen. I have 3 doors that need to be put in. The rest of the space, it's already built out. It's kind of an ideal situation. I had another co-working space owner come and check it out, and he went, "Wow, you don't really see this very often. It's already it's moving. You can move in and start rock and rolling." So I got kind of lucky in that way. So anything that I am doing I'm going to be able to take it with me.
Gotcha.
Pretty easily. Yeah.
Okay. Well, keep us posted on how it goes, and definitely see if you can get more guarantees on a longer engagement. I think that could be to your benefit for sure.
Okay.
Cool. Any other quick lightning round questions while we've got some more time?
Hey, Tony, I was just going to ask Melanie, what's your initial term on your lease?
3 years.
3 years, and you're asking for an additional 6-year?
An additional 3 years on top of that.
An additional 3 years.
Yeah.
Having been in I'm still a real estate broker, so, and having been on the other side, representing owners and landlords, they don't like giving options because it only benefits the tenant. But I would really try to stay with 3 years. And if there's not a large build out, usually the owner wants to get their money back, whether it's amortized for the term of the lease, but it sounds like your upfit, your TI work is minimal. So I'd really push or either that or ask for just 1 5-year term from the outset. Maybe that's a counter position, and then maybe a 3-year option beyond that. But you're only looking at potentially 1 year after your initial term.
Yeah. Okay, I will look into that too.
Angel, I'm thinking, since you got that handy book in front of you, and we've got you on a call, which is so special. Do you have any? Can you share any kind of top tips for pre-launch? Maybe some things that you have in the book, or there's things that people have told you are most valuable. As people are in this mostly in this pre-launch phase?
Yeah, so I think in chapter 1, there's an exercise where I make you work from a coffee shop for 6 hours. And a lot of people like to skip that because that is not fun. But then there's a lot of reflection and record keeping that you keep while you're doing your jail stint at the coffee shop. But that exercise is really meant to illuminate the pain that your future customers are in right now. And once you can really write down and experience what that's like, then you can do the second half of the exercise, which is how co-working solves all of those problems. And just that one exercise creates the platform that you need for all of your marketing and everything you need to talk about on your tour. Because I think the hardest part for me as a person with a small bladder is if I try to work from a coffee shop, I'm obviously drinking like hot liquids. And then so after about 45 minutes, I have to use the restroom. And then there's always like this existential crisis about like, well, should I try to leave my stuff? Like, how fast can I get back? Do I think it's going to be okay? Or should I ask this rando guy next to me to watch my stuff? Or do I pack up everything and take it with me for 90 seconds and then come back? And then
I bring my laptop and my phone, but not my charger? What about my Kindle? Does my Kindle go too? Or do I bring that?
Or do I just like close my laptop and then that indicates it's not stealable? I don't know. So I really like that exercise because it just really puts a point on all of the ways that you're going to help people. So that's a good activity in there. And then there's some pretty important work around the 5 co-working values. And I sense that that's probably one of the activities that people are like, oh, I know what the values of co-working are. This is fine. I've read them.
What are the 5 values of co-working, Angel?
Community, collaboration, sustainability, openness, accessibility. Oh, thank God.
We haven't really talked about it here, so I'm being reminded that it's kind of one of those things that we kind of skip over. But
yeah, it's sort of the foundation of our entire movement.
Yeah, how did they come about? Why, like, where did these 5 values come from?
So I think did Tara and Chris and Brad do it together?
Tara and Chris, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was led by Tara. Yeah. Yeah,
so Tara and Chris, who started one of the first most official co-working spaces after Brad did his work, just created these 5 core values for co-working and open sourced the whole thing. And now here we are all these years later.
Yeah, so that's been kind of the driving force behind. So like Tara Hunt and Chris Messina were some of the first followers of co-working when Brad Newberg created it in San Francisco. And they created a space called Citizen Space in San Francisco, which was really the prototype co-working space. Brad's version was kind of a funky pop-up thing that actually didn't really work very well. But what Tara and Chris did in Citizen Space was really the model co-working space that thousands of other spaces have modeled themselves after. And they had on their website a statement of their core values. And they also created the co-working Google group, the co-working wiki, and all of the platforms that really allowed for the word co-working to become a household name and a global phenomenon. So a lot of that was built on these kinds of core values that they created. So so what it sounds like you're doing in this exercise, Angel, is kind of giving people a little bit of an education on that background, and maybe giving people a chance to get caught up on that and integrate that into their own path as well.
Yeah, I feel like in today's world with people starting co-working spaces, we've lost a little bit of that history and how we came to be where we are today. So the book, the foreword and introduction and the backstory sort of gets you up to speed with that, so you can speak intelligently at cocktail parties. And then to do your own work interpreting the 5 values, because it's not a prescriptive 5 values. You can interpret them. And so there's an activity in the book where you can kind of write down your take on accessibility and your take on openness. And so I think that's really important and lends itself well to your about page.
Yeah, like the co-working movement has its set of values, but each community gets to define its values as it sees fit, right? So your community can have whatever values you think are most important to you, and certainly some of them have different ones or more of them in certain ways. So what do you see as being the value of establishing that early on, like even before you open the space? Like in terms of real practical value, because it sounds like a valuable thing kind of in theory, but again, like we're all busy, we have, construction stuff to deal with and business stuff to deal with. So like, why should I take the time to really think through the values of what I'm creating at this point?
I think it's important to lay them down in advance because something will always go wrong. And whether that's interpersonally between you and a member or between two members or between you and your landlord. And if you have your core values to look back at, it makes the path forward much clearer. I didn't have a really clearly laid out set of core values for Cohere when we opened our second location called Co There, and realized after the fact, after I got out of the lease, that our landlords didn't have an invested interest in having a building that we could be proud of. And so that wormed its way into what are now our values that are prominently displayed on the membership page of Cohere. But one of them is be prepared, or like be willing, or something. I don't remember what it is, but it's like be willing to take care of our physical space and feel proud of it, because we just couldn't feel proud of that building. They couldn't keep it together. It was just like dead squirrels in the parking lot. It was just like, it was just a nightmare world. And so we ended up leaving that space because we were just always at odds with our core values. And so it's been really nice to have that on the membership page, and people see that like right when they're, investigating whether they want Cohere. And there's things in there about like, be prepared for laughter, be prepared, to have fun and make friends and take care of the space that we're in. And it's just been really great. And I've never regretted writing that down.
Love that. And I feel like it creates a sense right away. I'm just pasting that in from your member page right now.
Oh, thanks.
I feel like it creates a sense from the very beginning that why did my video go away? That you're joining something that isn't just an office rental thing, and that there is some sense that you're joining something that's kind of exciting and meaningful. That these are people, and that the culture of how the people in this space get along is kind of important to the overall experience, which maybe makes it less of an uphill battle to kind of educate people on why this is not just an office rental when they join.
Yeah, I'm certain that there's people who never cross our threshold because we are way up in their grill, and they don't want that. They don't want somebody to talk to them and interrupt them with offers of coffee and waffles or whatever. But I have had a guy come in and after the tour, he was just white. Like he was just like pale. And he goes, I'm getting the sense that this is like more than just the Wi-Fi speed. And I was like, yeah, you need to go home and decide, do you want friends or do you need Wi-Fi? And I never heard from him again.
A lot of people just need Wi-Fi. I mean, that's okay too. So much, I feel like there's so much value to be had in gracefully dissuading people who are not a good culture fit. Because we could, think about the amount of work that goes into dealing with a new prospective member that comes in. They email you or they call you. You got to respond, schedule a tour, spend some time to get to know them. And, it might be a while before you really determine that you actually you'd rather this person not join your space. And, and then, you could even get into a sticky situation of, if the person hasn't figured it out yet, then, you have to kind of deal with what happens if they want to join. And so, finding graceful ways to make it very easy for people to self-select in or out from the beginning is really important. And the language that you use on your website, in your marketing materials, in your social media, whatever it is, can do a great job of really activating that. Because I think a lot of co-working space people, even ones who are awesome, it's very easy to regress to like trying to write something that's accessible to everybody and kind of playing it safe. But I think by doing it, you're kind of, if you go too far with that, you end up losing a lot of the personality that can make you really pop for the people that you want, and can turn away the people that you don't. You know, so like playing it safe it kind of gives you safe, like instead of going for awesome, you kind of end up getting like middle of the road stuff, and that could get you middle of the road interactions and things like that. I don't know. I found when I'm more bold with my language that I get bolder people, and those people end up being better members, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think also as new space owners, there's always this risk or danger, I guess, in selling so hard that you sell to the wrong people. And then you risk your community never coming to fruition because you're just so concerned about the bottom line that you'll take that guy who was rude to me, or, you know, that person who showed up and interrupted a meeting and demanded a tour, or, you know, that woman who said something derogatory about someone during their tour. So, you know, never try not to get caught up in the sales cycle so much that you're selling to people who are just terrible people. I mean, there's just terrible people out there, and I don't want them at Cohere. So that's the whole reason I started my co-working alliance, was to shift terrible people to other co-working spaces. But when Tony was talking about like the diplomacy of trying, you know, because we never say you can't join. But what we do have is this little flyer with our FOCO Works Alliance website. And if somebody's not a great fit for Cohere, and sometimes that's like a person with just no social awareness, they'll be upstairs in the co-working room where 10 people are working and just talking and talking and talking, and you just can't even get them out of the room. And when their tour is finally over, 40 minutes later, all the members are just like, no, oh God, please no. They get that flyer, and I say, I want to make sure you visit all of the communities before you choose.
Melanie.
Yes, Melanie.
So I got a question on that, because we have, this will be the only co-working space in this whole area. This is the first one.
I was also the first one.
So I want to encourage someone to open up your own. Oh man.
I think you can, when you're the only shop in town, you can sort of shift to an inquiry method, which is where you maybe sit down with the person after their tour and you say, so what are you hoping to get out of your membership here? And they'll be like, well, I want to sell my essential oils to all your members. And it's like, no, that's not really how we operate. Or, you know, what do you see yourself bringing to our community? Like, what special skill or gift do you have?
Yeah.
And if they can't think of anything, you might say, well, why don't you go home and think about what you could contribute?
Yeah.
And then we'll talk again about what membership would be right for you. So you just sort of ask them questions that lead them into the, like, oh, this is a place where like I can't sell, at least not every day, all day, and a place where I'm going to be expected to give something. And that just turns a lot of people away because they're just not interested in that kind of relationship.
So we're at the hour, so if you have to go, totally cool, and thanks for joining. I do want to keep on this thread for a couple more minutes if some of you guys are down for that. Yeah. So exclusivity versus inclusivity and openness, those kinds of things, very tricky. I would say that I erred on the side of radical openness. Like I really, really wanted to not be too good for anyone. I felt like, I don't know, it was probably because I grew up and I was not one of the cool kids, and I just hated, you know, feeling excluded. And even in New York City, there's just so much of this notion of like, oh, it's this special thing, but you have to apply, and like maybe we'll think that you're worthy. And I know that there were a lot of co-working spaces that opened in New York that absolutely just, it was complete bullshit. but they said like, oh yeah, we opened, but we already have a wait list, so you have to apply, and like maybe if you're lucky, we'll let you in. And it was total garbage. It was just like anyone who applied, they let in. And I just hated that. But at the same time, I also took on members that probably cost me a lot of better members, honestly. It cost me a lot of money because they weren't a good cultural fit and they were toxic. And, so I don't know that I would have been super exclusive about it either, but I think something like what Angel's describing, where you add some layer of curation there, helps a lot, especially in the beginning. First 10 members you have are going to set the cultural norms for the next 100. And so the more work you put into those first few members, the more it's going to pay down the line. So, and this is another opportunity in the pre-launch phase where, you don't have a door for them to walk into yet. So you can be you can exercise a lot more control over who is involved in the conversations in the beginning, who gets invited to be one of your founding members, and who gets to have influence over that process. So, this is why it's super important. Even if the person's not willing to pay or they, maybe they don't have the money, awesome, you could set up some barter relationship. But culturally speaking, if you identify somebody, you said, this person's got to be a part of this, because that one person is going to affect so many more people who are going to walk in the door, then you find a way to get those people in. And so the more that you can really proactively curate the kinds of people you want, the better of a support system and defense system you will have for when people who aren't a good cultural fit kind of come in and maybe see what's going on. And a lot of times they self-select right back out. The people who don't fit into that culture, people who don't fit into a culture tend to recognize that pretty quickly and recognize that what they want is something else. And I saw that in New York a lot, where it would be cast as more of a like tech startup culture thing, which was, something we had a lot of great tech startups in our space, but the culture that they were looking for was one that was a little bit more bro-y and a little bit more salesy and a little bit more intense. And, they didn't find that in our space, and they did find it elsewhere. So more power to them, but yeah, being proactive about that is hugely helpful. Cool. All right. Any last minute questions or thoughts? Angel, I feel like our time just went so quickly.
I know. I loved it. I hope I can come back one day.
I was thinking the same. Awesome, guys. Well, we're going to be in touch. I'm still working on some stuff for the turn of the year. As I described, we're going to be doing some new cohorts, and my evil scheme is that I want to get everybody working together on coordinating the recruitment efforts for the January rush, which means doing some December promotion. And even if you don't have a space yet, there's a great time to kick off your pilot community or your pop-up community or whatever it is. So, if you're pre-launch, great chance to get those first 10 or 15 or 20 people meeting on a regular basis at your home-based cafe or whatever it is that you're using as your temporary kind of hangout spot leading up to the opening of your space. And I'm developing a more kind of sophisticated program that you can follow in order to, do that in the best possible way. So I'll be in touch with more about that very soon. And cool. Awesome. Anything else before we go?
Right. Thank you, Angel, for your time. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Angel.
Yay. Thanks, Angel.
Bye.
All right. Oh, grab the links or whatever in the chat. I'm going to leave the meeting but not end it. So whoever's out last, you're going to be the last one to get the chat. So, all right. Catch you later, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.